Welcome to It's an Ink and Stampede. This is Darlene, and today's video we'll be working on the back side of our first inside page on the Home for Thanksgiving door album. So what I've done first here is I've covered my page with the paper Grateful Harvest from the Homestead SEI Homestead collection. And my plan for this album is to do a gatefold, like triangular, rectangular gatefold where I can hold some few cards inside, maybe take some pictures of my dinner guests, and then journal on the back. So the first thing that I'm going to do is make that little gatefold holder. So I'm going to need a piece of paper. I'm going to use the quiche. This is the one that we used on the storm door cover. And the first thing that I always do with my papers is cut off this one little edge. And then the page size that we need for this is going to be 8.5 by 10.25. So I'm going to go do the 10.25 first. Set that aside. And I need my scoring board. This is the Stampin' Up! Scoring board, in case you're interested. And the way that I'm going to score this is on the 8.5 inch side. I want to score at 1.5 inches and 7. Then you're going to rotate it to the 10.25 inch side, and on that I want to score at 2 1/8, 3 5/8, 6 5/8, and 8 1/8. So hopefully you can see that. I'll turn it on this side. You might be able to see a little bit better. Then what I'm going to do is get my diagonal plate. And if any of you have this scoring board and diagonal plate, there's an arrow on this side. That is to go up toward the ruler side at the top. And then what I'm going to do to this, and maybe I'll do it on this side, you might be able to see it a little bit better, is at the 5 1/8 inch side, and that's where that's marked at with the little marker. I'm going to start here, and I'm going to follow that diagonal line down to the intersection of these two lines. Just spin this around, do the same thing on this side. Then I'll have to flip it over. You may not be able to see it that well on this side. Same thing for the other two sides. To the intersecting line, spin it around. Alright, and that's all that I need to do for the scoring lines on this box. And then I'm going to go ahead, and I have found that when I fold on all of these lines, if you fold both ways, back and forth, it makes the box close better. You'll see what I mean in a little bit. So continue on folding these one way and then reverse it and fold it the other way. And I will use the bone folder also. Make sure these lines are nice and crisp. Alright, all my folds have been reinforced, and the only ones that I have not folded are the two diagonals on each side. And we're going to leave those toward the end. What I want to do right now is cut out some corners. I flipped my paper over because this side is kind of hard to see against my mat. And I want you to be able to see the cuts on this. So it's pretty simple, but I'm going to cut all the way up past the first score line all the way up to the second score line on each side. And this is going parallel to the 10 1/4 inch side. So you've got the long flaps here. I'm going to spin it around and do the same on this side, on this end. Past the first score line up to the second. And then what I want to do is cut off these tabs. These we aren't going to need. So you just want to remove those. You can use scissors. You can use your craft knife if you like to work with that. These are going to be flaps that we're going to use to attach the box and hold it together. So let me get a piece of white paper here. It'll be a little bit easier for you to see what I'm going to do next. So to give you an idea, you want to hold the box this way, and then you're also going to now fold on these flaps. And you'll see how the box starts to form here shortly. Going to fold up on those diagonal lines that we made. And you'll see, as we put this together, these flaps are going to be on the outside of the box. And that's where we'll put the adhesive, and it will start forming your box. You can use liquid glue. You can use score tape. I'm going to use score tape today. I want my pattern to be on the inside. So I'm keeping the side that I want to be on the inside showing up front facing me. I'm also going to put a ribbon on the back, and I want to adhere it about halfway down. You can measure it or just eyeball it. So what I'm going to do is use liquid glue for that and put a good amount there. This is going to be my tie to keep my gatefold closed on the front. This is just a Stampin' Up! Chocolate chip satin ribbon. It's about 24 inches. And I'm just going to place it on there, centering it. I have it a little bit longer so I can trim later. Let that set up a bit. And we'll begin assembling the box. Alright, I'm going to remove the tape backing. Or you would do this, if you're using liquid glue, you would do this right away. On one flap. And line this up on the side. Nice and even. So it makes a nice square corner. You can see how that flapped over and secured. Same thing on this side. Continue on the other side. Now I'd like to put something to cover these tabs up on the side, so I've decided to use the champagne glimmer paper, and I've cut those at 1 3/8 by 5 3/8. You'll need 2 at that measurement, just to decorate the sides up pretty. Repeat the same process on the other side, of course. Alright, both sides are done. And I've put a mat on the inside bottom. And that measurement for that mat is 2 3/4 by 5 1/4. It has a little border around the edge. Just something that looks pretty at the bottom where I set the cards when they come out. You still have a little bit of a decorative look. And now I want to put some mats here. So I've cut out 2 pieces of paper from the companion set of cardstocks that I got, or pattern papers that I got from SEI. And this doesn't have a name, but I'm going to cut 2 of these at 1 7/8 by 5 1/4. And want to take the wild honey and distress the edges just a slight bit. And I'll take my ATG gun and I'll adhere on the flaps. And I'll be back to show you how I attach it to the page. Okay, we've got the mats on the front, gatefold done. And now what I think I should do, I'm going to put the 2 hinges on here. I prepared these 2 hinges from the kit the same way as I showed you before, with the embossing powder and putting the little bit of the leaf design in there with the rubber stamp. So I want to place these on. Get an idea where this card's going to be centered at, or a little holder. I want to center it between both of these. Make a little mark up here where I want it to be. That way I can adhere the hinges on now, and we'll get everything centered nice. Again, I'm using the quick dry adhesive for my hinges. I'm seeing a little bit of a white edge on here, so I'm going to hit this with the Distress ink also. I don't want that white edge showing. It's from the core of the paper. And this is going to get a lot of use, so I think what I'm going to do is use score tape. Let me set this aside. And I'm going to put score tape on the back of this pretty liberally. Okay, I've added score tape on the back of this. Now remove all the backing and we'll place it onto the page, centered where I have the marks at. Alright, so this is how it should look. And now I'm going to set this aside because I want to make the cards to go inside. I'm making one for each guest, and I've cut this very vanilla cardstock. Let me measure it for you so you can see. pretty sure it's 2.5, I'm sorry, 2 3/4 by 5 1/4. And I'm making enough for every guest. And I think I want to round the corners on this. So I'm going to use the 1/4 inch corner chomper. And my idea is to stamp some leaves on the front. I've already done some. I'll show you in just a moment. Stamp the leaves on the front, and then I'm going to journal on the back about the person so that I can put a little picture here and it'll have a nice subtle background. So I'm going to also ink the edges with wild honey very subtly, not super powerful. I want it to be kind of soft. Both sides. And I'm going to use the Stampers Anonymous Tim Holtz leaves, the falling leaves. And I think I have, here's some of the ones that I've already done. And I've used all of the Stampin' Up! Colors, the Summer Starfruit. This one is the Rich Razzleberry. This one is Soft Suede. This is Cajun Craze. And I did throw in an Old Olive ink, which I thought was kind of pretty too. So I'm going to show you how you can get a two-tone look. These were all one solid color. I'm going to take the Old Olive and also the Cajun Craze. I always start with the lighter color first. And this happens to be not the new foam pad, so you have to press a little bit. This is the felt pad. This is an older style of ink pad. Get that in the green or the lighter color that you've chosen. And then I take a sponge dauber. You can even take a piece of sponge of any kind. You can even use your finger if you don't mind getting inky. This is Cajun Craze, as I said. Just get some on the sponge dauber, and you can add a little bit to the edges or wherever you want another additional piece of color. It's going to be subtle, but it also adds a little more dimension to your stamped image. Breathe on it just a little bit to re-wet it, and then press down. And hopefully that you can see there's two-tone effect compared to the plain leaf that's all green. So I could have done that with any of them, but I thought I would show you how to get a couple of colors on your leaf. So I'm going to continue going ahead and finishing this one off, and we'll move on to the next step. Here's the final card. And like I said, plain on the back. So we'll take all of these and insert them in the center. And this will fold just perfect. There's enough room for a few more. I've only done 6. I'm having a small dinner this year. But it'll fit nicely in there. And then I want to tie this in a nice bow. I've already trimmed the ends into a V, and how I do that is just fold the ribbon in half and trim on a diagonal on both ends. So we've got that done. Now what I would like to do is do something at the top here so it doesn't look too plain, but I really don't want to cover up this pretty paper. So I've chosen that same brown striped paper, and I'm going to, I think I'm going to do a scalloped edge across the top here. So I'm going to get my Scallop Border punch, And I always punch mine upside down so I can see what I'm doing. To start in the center, and then line them up along the edges and on the marks. You don't have to turn it upside down the first time. I think it's just something that I got used to doing. This piece is just cut large enough to where I know it's wide enough for the top. So I'm going to adhere this down with ATG. You know, actually I'm going to adhere this down with liquid glue, so I have a little time to move it around, because I want my scallops to match on both sides, and I know that I won't match it up that well. So we'll do it that way. I'm safer if I have a little bit more room to move my project paper around. I never can line things up perfectly on the first try. Make sure I have enough paper at the top, which I do. Make sure it's straight. Seeing these are stripes, that'll show. Get all the air bubbles out. And then what I'm going to do is trim this around the edge. With my craft knife. And I think I'll get rid of that white core. It's very subtle, but it's showing. So I'm going to use my blending tool and get rid of some of that. Okay. And I have some little jewels from Bo Bunny that are a nice shade of brown. There's actually two shades here. So I'm going to alternate the colors, and I'm going to put them in each one of these little scalloped areas and center them along. So we'll do the light in every other one. That's done. Hopefully you can see the little rhinestones. So now I want to make a little tag to hang off of this ribbon, and I'm going to use some Cajun Craze cardstock, and I have a stamp set, Thank You Kindly, from Stampin' Up, all different thank you texts and thanks. But what I want to do is I want to put a little tag that says Thankful, and I don't have a stamp that says that, so I'm going to kind of improvise and make my own. I'm going to use the Silver Metallic Encore ink, and I'm only going to stamp, or excuse me, I'm only going to ink the thank, and I'm not going to do the U. So I turn my stamp over, it's easier to see where to stop at, and I'll stamp the thank. Let me clean this off real quick. And seeing that I don't have for the rest of the word, I'm going to take, and hopefully I can use my handwriting and make it straight. I'm just going to write the end of the word full in a black Sharpie. And to make it show up a little bit, I'm going to use that Jelly Roll glitter pen and kind of go over that. The black stays under, but there's just a little bit of glimmer that shows, and I think that makes it look more obvious. Alright, I've cut that out, and I've kind of done just a gentle curve around the word, and I held it up, and it does show, but not quite as much as I want. I'd like a little bit of a darker border. So I could ink around this in a dark chocolate, like, you know, the soft suede or even a chocolate chip, but I'm going to do like another matte. And so I've picked this gray. It's actually on the back of this pattern, and just going to adhere this on, and then trim around it, leaving a small little border. So I'll glue this on, let it dry for a minute, and trim it out, and it'll almost be done. And leave about approximately that much room when I'm trimming around the whole word. Give it a chance to dry for a minute. Alright, I finished cutting that out. I'm going to put a little bit of the Distress ink around the edge, again to get rid of that white core. I'm going to take my 1/16 inch punch and punch a hole. Then I've got some of the Baker's Twine in Early Espresso. I'm going to feed that through the little hole. And I think I'll just thread it through. Actually, let's try it this way. Let's tie a knot this way first. I want it to dangle, but I also want it to be able to be tied on tightly to the ribbon so it doesn't come off. So I'm going to tie a knot first this way to secure it so I get that loose dangle. And then I'm going to spread these apart and feed them through. And tie a knot this way. And I'm going to leave these ends kind of loose and floppy, maybe trim them a bit. You can also tie that in a bow, but I don't want it to take away from the other bow. But I want it to be still that little bit of warm Thanksgiving rustic look. So there you go. That's this page. We'll call this done. My next page I've covered with this paper. And we will probably, my plan is to use the two pieces that came from the other part at the beginning of the videos. I think this was where we cut out off of the, oh no, this was the extra pieces that you get in your kit. So I'm going to do something fun with these, and we'll design the next page in the next video. So thank you so much for stopping in, and I hope you're enjoying this project.